Welcome back to our walking tour of Israel. We ended last time at Mount Carmel near the Mediterranean coast, but today we're going to head inland towards the southeast and travel 50 miles or so where we'll run into the Jordan River. This part of the Jordan is formed as the water flowing from the Sea of Galilee in the north works its way south to the Dead Sea. Since I grew up near Cincinnati, the Ohio River is what I first pictured when imagining a river as famous as the Jordan. But it turns out I was really wrong about that in many ways. It's actually more like the creeks that I used to play in when I was a kid. But it's a fast-flowing waterway since elevation drops about 700 feet in the 65 miles between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. Israel has most of its rainfall from November through March. I visited in June, so the water level can get fairly low, as you can see in this picture. Now, you're not seeing a branch of the Jordan River here. That's the entire span of the river at this point. The Jordan plays a significant role in the biblical story. You're most likely familiar with it as the place where John the Baptist did his work, most notably baptizing Jesus himself. And while that is surely a milestone moment, in these next few sessions, I'd like to take us back much farther than that, cracking open a more obscure text that you might never have even seen before. Set over 3,000 years ago, the Bible tells us about a conflict that's centered around the Jordan River and the question of who is one of us. In our present day of division and animosity, maybe the Jordan holds some wisdom that we would do well to swim in for a while. So let's journey back to around 1400 or 1200 BCE, 40 years after the Exodus, where Moses has brought the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt, and they've been wandering around that Sinai Peninsula for a generation. And as we get to the end of the book of Numbers, Israel is poised to enter the Promised Land. This map gives a better view of the plan of entry, which is going to be somewhere close to Jericho. But that doesn't happen until the book of Joshua, and we're not there yet. Because we're going to dive in at the end of the book of Numbers, where the nation is making its way north in the territory east of the Dead Sea and the Jordan River. What I want you to notice is that the land that they're passing through isn't empty. They encounter lots of other people groups as they head north, and Israel responds differently to them. For example, in Numbers 20, the Edomites won't let them pass through their territory, so the Israelites go around it to the east. The same with the Moabites, whom they encounter next. And we learned from Deuteronomy 2 that you are not to make war with the Ammonites, so Israel keeps to the west of Ammonite country. But Numbers 21 relates an event which is to have a long-lasting impact on Israel settling in the new land. Let's pick it up in Numbers 21:21. Israel sent messengers to say to Sihon, king of the Amorites. Now note that he is Amorite, not Ammonite, so this is a totally different people group. Let us pass through your country. We will not turn aside into any field or vineyard or drink water from any well. We will travel along the king's highway until we have passed through your territory. But Sihon would not let Israel pass through his territory. He mustered his entire army and marched out into the wilderness against Israel. And when he reached Jahaz, he fought with Israel. Israel, however, put him to the sword and took over his land from the Arnon to the Jabbok, but only as far as the Ammonites, because their border was fortified. So on their way to the Promised Land across the Jordan, Israel battles the Amorites on the eastern side. They're victorious, and they take possession of this territory. And Israel continues its march north, where a northern king, Og of Bashan, who's also an Amorite, marches out to battle them at Edrei. Again, Israel is successful and takes possession of his land as well. So before they even cross the Jordan River, Israel has conquered 2 Amorite nations, and now they possess their territory. Now, while we might celebrate that because the Israelites are the Bible's good guys, I'm going to throw out a really hard question. Is this outside the scope of what God had promised to them? It's a tough question because, as with many things in the Bible, there's not really an absolutely clear answer. You see, the Bible gives differing accounts of what should be the borders of the Promised Land. For example, there's Deuteronomy 7:1, which speaks in terms of people groups rather than geography. When the Lord your God brings you into the land where you are entering to possess it, and clears away many nations before you, the Hittites, the Girgashites and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites. 7 nations greater and stronger than you. So according to Deuteronomy 7, because the Amorites are located east of the Jordan, this land is slated for conquest. But Numbers 34, it uses geographic markers. And speaking of the eastern boundary, it says, then the boundary will go down along the Jordan and end at the Salt Sea. So the text from Numbers would draw the border more like this, which would set the land Israel just conquered from the Amorites as outside the boundaries of what was promised. Do you see why the question isn't quite so simple? And I wonder if the ancient Israelites struggled with this as well. Can't you see 2 legitimate sides here? On the one hand, you have those who would say, well, Moses isn't allowed an entrance into the promised land, but Moses is surely here with us on the eastern side of the Jordan. Therefore, this can't be the promised land. This isn't Israel. That argument makes some sense. But on the other side, you have those who would contend, though this wasn't what we expected, here we are, with land that is now ours. Shouldn't we shift to take hold of this amazing turn of events? Life has just worked out this way, and maybe God is up to something bigger than we thought. Maybe we should adapt. And that's just what 2 of the tribes try to do in Numbers 32. The Reubenites and Gadites, the tribes of Reuben and Gad, who had very large herds and flocks, saw that the lands of Jazer and Gilead, that's the land that they just conquered, were suitable for livestock. So they came to Moses and Eleazar the priest and the leaders of the community and said, the land the Lord subdued before the people of Israel are suitable for livestock, and your servants have livestock. If we have found favor in your eyes, they said, let this land be given to your servants as our possession. Do not make us cross the Jordan. So 2 of the tribes, Gad and Reuben, assessed that the land east of the Jordan, where they're currently standing and land that they already possess, it seems pretty good. They look west across the Jordan and decide that the grass is not greener over there. And in a bold move, they present this innovative idea to Moses and the leaders. So how does it go? Moses said to the Gadites and Reubenites, should your fellow Israelites go to war while you sit here? Why do you discourage the Israelites from crossing over into the land the Lord has given them? And here you are, a brood of sinners, standing in the place of your fathers and making the Lord even more angry with Israel. If you turn away from following him, he will again leave all this people in the wilderness, and you will be the cause of their destruction. So it doesn't go well. Moses is understandably furious. He's taken back to 40 years ago when the spies came back from surveying the land of milk and honey and reported how impossible it was going to be to conquer it, throwing the whole project off the rails for the next 40 years. He can't stomach a repeat of that nonsense. But Moses hasn't heard the whole proposal. Then they came up to him and said, we would like to build pens here for our livestock and cities for our women and children, but we will arm ourselves for battle and go ahead of the Israelites until we have brought them to their place. We will not return to our homes until each of the Israelites has received their inheritance. We will not receive any inheritance with them on the other side of the Jordan, because our inheritance has come to us on the east side of the Jordan. They assure Moses that they will do their part. They will even be the first to fight and the last to leave. They just want to branch out a bit afterwards without being cut off or cast out. Can Moses entertain this change in plans? Then Moses said to them, if you will do this, if you will arm yourselves before the Lord for battle, and if all of you who are armed cross over the Jordan before the Lord until he has driven his enemies out before him, then when the land is subdued before the Lord, you may return to this land, and it will be your possession before the Lord. But if you fail to do this, you will be sinning against the Lord, and you may be sure that your sin will find you out. I get the sense that he doesn't love the idea, but he thinks that it's workable. It all depends on the faithfulness of the 2 tribes. The Gadites and the Reubenites answered, your servants will do what the Lord has said. We will cross over before the Lord into Canaan armed, but the property we will inherit will be on this side of the Jordan. Then Moses gave to the Gadites, the Reubenites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and I'm not sure exactly how Manasseh got in there, the son of Joseph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, king of Bashan, the whole land with its cities and the territory around them. So as Israel is poised to enter the promised land, things have gone a bit off script. The unexpected happens, and they obtain land they didn't plan for. Reuben and Gad and half of Manasseh's tribe propose an adjustment to radically expand the original vision. They promise loyalty to the cause, but they are asking a question that's fairly out of the box. Do we have to reside west of the Jordan to be truly part of Israel? Is the Jordan River really the boundary to who is Israelite, or do our faithful actions determine whether or not we can be one of you? The answer's not as clear as we might hope, so tune in next time to learn how things shake out. So thanks for coming along on this short journey into the Bible text. I hope you've noticed something new in the landscape, or maybe even a fresh way to view territory that you've covered many times before. Whatever the case, it's good to have you along for the trip. You never know what we might discover as we crack open this fascinating text together.